Most honorable, dearest, noble, and esteemed viewer, I now share with you the Arcturian ceremony for the awakening of the planetary starseeds of planet Earth.
Chapter 29, Imaho.
Imaho.
Once the preparatory cleansing was finished, Michael put down his implements and addressed the entire group. Sacred brothers and sisters who've gathered here this dawn, he began. We thank Great Spirit for the opportunity to walk the good earth together in friendship and care. We are all brothers and sisters, inseparable from the mind and heart of Great Spirit. This circle, by its very nature, is inclusive. We can no longer live as if we are separate entities on this planet. Whatever one person or country does affects all the others. The circle also ensures we are seen as equals in the Creator's eyes, and brings us all together in that larger context, reminding us now it is time to share our resources and blessings for the good of all. Such acts will not only bring happiness to those around us, ultimately resulting in our own happiness, but this is, candidly, the only way for us to now survive as a species. I thank all of you who have gathered here today as we speak to our Creator with one voice and one intention: to live in love and harmony with all creatures, large and small, blessing all those we touch, to bring healing and balance once again to our ailing mother, just as we would honor and care for a sick parent whose kindness and protection allowed us as children to grow into caring, strong men and women. Our great mother, Mother Earth, desperately needs our help. We are grateful to Master Dorje and our Arcturian and Pleiadian brethren who have helped assemble us in one place, so that the power of each of our respective lineages may lift up our voices to the heavens as one powerful prayer, resounding clearly throughout the universes. All this week we have performed the preliminary rituals and purifications. Can we talk? Performing that sweat lodge ceremony last night when it was already 114 degrees in the shade reminded me that now the only two seasons here in Arizona are hot and hotter. It was so hot Satan took the night off. Bees took off their yellow jackets. Cows gave evaporated milk. Chickens laid hard-boiled eggs, and the water sprinkled on the glowing rocks created holy water, because we boiled the hell out of it. By the way, who is the joker who tossed firecrackers in the fire pit? Everyone laughed. The medicine man had performed his job admirably. In any case, he said, we are ready. May our ancestors come and assist us in this, the sacred task set before us today. After several moments of silence and meditation, he continued. Would the initiates please take their respective places in the medicine wheel? You know where you are in life and what is needed for you to progress on the spiritual path. Today, you have arrived at the truth stage. When aligned with spirit and connected to internal wisdom, your walk around the medicine wheel will be rewarding, although not without trouble and pain. The initiates entered into the outer circle of the medicine wheel, and the master pointed out which spot to stand on. I stood by and watched, wondering whether Dorje and I were going to be inside or outside the circle. I hoped I'd be within the inner circle, which represented the great mysteries. And wouldn't you know it, that's exactly where Dorje told me to go. In the east stood Andrew. The east represented beginnings, endings, and renewal, returning back to our origins. Reflected in the color yellow, it was represented by the fire element, sunrise, emergence of light, leading to enlightenment. Janine stood in the south, the place that received maximum light as the sun journeyed through the sky and peaks. Represented by the color red, it was associated with the water element, emotional intelligence, free-flowing emotions, addressing our inner child in core wounds with childlike trust and innocence. Marty took his place in the west, a place of sunset, where the sun went down and light returned to the dark. Represented by the color black, it held energy and required introspection, as it symbolized a transition phase often known as the dark night of the soul, where the shadow aspect within us required confrontation if we were to progress emotionally and spiritually, building knowledge and wisdom. Power could only be properly mastered when the light and the dark both were seen. Finally, in the north stood Zap, a place of rest, remembering and contemplating the death state and what we accomplished as a child, youth, and adult, so as to experience the fullness of self, leading to wisdom and logic, represented by the color white and element of air, mental energy. Once the 4 initiates were in place, Dorje summoned Morgana and the other recruits. The initiates were to take their respective places in the middle of each of the 4 major directions. Morgana took her place in the northeast, a place of learning to control and direct spiritual energy. Larry took his place in the southeast, a place representing the self with our gifts and aptitudes, including those passed on by our ancestors. Roberta stood in the southwest, representing our dream reality and doors of perception, the place on the medicine wheel where acquired beliefs could influence and distort pure perception, and where lucid dreaming can take place. Finally, Sam stood in the northwest, symbolic of the law of karma, allowing one to accept the various lessons, joyous and challenging, taught by life every moment of each day. Dorje took his place at the very center of the wheel, standing beside me. The center represented the sacred mysteries, indescribable divine essence, universal spirit, the unity of clarity, wisdom, and emptiness, inseparable from supreme, omniscient, and omnipresent divine consciousness, sometimes known as the Dharmakaya, or totality. All that ever was, and all that ever will be. Once everyone was in place, the Peruvian shaman, standing next to Michael, led the invocation, which had been translated from the Andean Codex into English by J.E. Williams. To the east, the place of insight and rebirth, I send a prayer. To the west, the place of death and wisdom, I send a voice. To the north, the place of clarity and cleansing, I offer respect. To the south, the place where Amaru, the serpent spirit, dwells and teaches healing and the spiritual powers of plants, in the green place of reproduction and regeneration, I sing a song. To the 4 winds I cast my spirit, open my heart, release my soul, and surrender to my destiny. Grant me the wisdom to understand the sacred in nature. When the invocation was complete, Dorje spoke. The Arcturian elders and wisdom keepers of the different religious traditions will now collectively use our combined spiritual power to enable you to enter the dream state and communicate with our star brethren. Woodstock was the first nudge of enlightenment for the Starseeds. This dawn, we shall let them know the time has come to fully wake and come together to defeat our collective enemy. Listen now to the drums and rattles resounding throughout the canyon. Let their sound and prayers of the spiritual masters carry you on your spirit canoes to the predetermined destination you have all seen in your dreams. A silence fell, and as the recruits settled in, huddling in blankets, their breath slowed, creating gentle billows of steam in the crisp morning air. The drumming and rattling commenced in unison as the ceremony began. Deep-pitched booming and high-pitched maracas echoed throughout the canyon like rattlesnakes woken up during a violent thunderstorm. And then, just as the sacred ceremony was getting underway, the weather began to change. Dark clouds formed over the ceremony with lightning bolts and thunder in the distance. As the ominous darkness approached the ceremonial campfires, it spread overhead and began forming a large black circle over the canyon, growing bigger by the minute. The chanting continued as the shadow became so large it eclipsed the light from the risen sun, and only the burning campfires of the prayer circles lit the surroundings. It was an eerie sight, Everyone looked up at the shadow, recognizing what was happening. Evil had awoken. As if a spiritual five-alarm fire bell had gone off, Dorje sprang into action, as did all the religious leaders, men and women, surrounding the tribal campfires. They turned to face the amorphous forms, which appeared from within the menacing dark shadows above. Rattles and drums, along with chants in different voices, intonations, and languages, became louder and louder to drive away the approaching forces. Just as all the spiritual leaders were calling to the forces of light and mustering their combined strength to fight off their attackers, they finally saw the face of their enemy. Large, shimmering green reptilian heads formed out of the darkness with blazing red eyes. The king and queen of the reptiles had decided to come and crash the party. Why wasn't I invited to this little gathering? The reptilian king boomed. That's not very sporting of you. I am told I can be the life of the party. The reptilian queen shook her luminous green head in agreement. Yes, you should have seen the last Halloween party at our home, she said in a deep booming voice. It was a blast. The king told everyone to bob for apples, but neglected to mention they were floating in searing hot oil. Thunderous laughter from the king and queen echoed throughout the canyon. Shivers ran up and down the spines of the group. Reptilian humor was an acquired taste, and Dorje knew of their tactics. What is it that you want here, O King of Darkness? Dorje yelled. Are you hungry? I hear all the good food is in the base of an active volcano located quite a distance from here. I'm happy to tell you where to go. I didn't come for the food, O wizard of fools, the reptilian king replied. I came to show you your future. You all seem to be so interested to know what fate awaits you. I thought it would be easier to simply show you so you don't waste your time. The darkness above the king and queen began to part, and vivid images were projected overhead. Terrible visions. Homes destroyed by level 5 hurricanes and tornadoes. Earthquakes rocking cities with gaping holes in the earth, engulfing entire towns. Acrid black smoke and cries of fleeing burnt animals. Hailstorms destroying crops, with starving families and dying people lying in piles on the sides of roads. Tsunamis wiping out seaside villages as people fled in fear. Millions of refugees marching across barren land with hungry children in tow. Wars between neighboring countries fighting for food and water as slain men and women lay strewn across blood-stained battlefields. The images were shocking, macabre, terrifying. Cries of anguish echoed throughout the canyon as scene after scene unfolded. But Dorje merely smiled. Your feeble attempts to place fear in our hearts and minds are useless, he said. We know well of your power, but you underestimate ours. You are no match for our combined strength and will. Dorje knew it was a perfect time to show the recruits how powerful the group actually was. The mage lifted his hands above his head and chanted in ancient Arcturian to form a circle of blazing light above them all. Brothers and sisters, the master magician boomed, it is our time. Let us come together and show our reptilian friends what love, prayer, and devotion, as one heart and one mind, can do. Hoots and howls emerged from the group. Rattles and drums boomed even more strongly as their sounds echoed from the canyon walls. Within seconds, light filled the space, and the abysmal darkness began to dissipate as a magical shimmering doorway formed overhead. Angelic legions and fierce spiritual protectors in fiery forms poured out, surrounding the reptilian king and queen. The images continued, but the scene suddenly changed. The wars and pollution and suffering faded. The waters grew calm. Fields were fertile, forests green and healthy, and teeming with animals. There were bustling cities and smiling families. The enemy was no match for the combined power of the group. Dorje turned to the reptile. "Do not return again," the Star Magician warned, "unless you want us to show you the full power of humanity working as one. This was only a taste of what is to come if you dare come back. Begone, King and Queen of Darkness." The forms of the giant reptiles began to writhe, pain distorting their features, and they disappeared into thin air as if they had never been there. The sun emerged from behind the clouds. A profound silence and peace came over them all. They knew now that they could win such a battle, not just today, but again in the future. With that realization and renewed confidence, screeching, howling, and hooting filled the canyon once more until it was deafening. The recruits looked at one another in amazement. The master had prepared them for such a day, but they hadn't envisioned such a show of force and spiritual power. "Aho!" Michael Cooley yelled. "Enough lollygagging! Our break is over. Time to get back to work." Laughter broke out again. "You've now seen what the power of Great Spirit can do when we work as one. Let's wake up our sleeping brethren. Take your stances in the medicine wheel. It's time to locate and free Earth's supreme starseeds." Rhythmic drumming and chanting once more filled the canyon, and the rattling vibrated them to the core. Listening carefully to the sound, each of the initiates called to their spirit guides and entered their spirit canoes, setting off for their respective destinations. In the east, Andrew and his spirit bear set off to find Starseed elders and give them the courage and conviction to wake up. In the south, Janine paddled while her spirit owl flew in the first of 8 directions to bring divine messages of awakening. In the west, Marty and his eagle brought love and divine protection to all who were still asleep and afraid. In the north, Zach and his spirit buffalo made offerings to Wakantanka to ensure successful outcomes for all of the other members of his tribe. In the northeast, Morgana and her black-tailed deer brought compassion and mystical energy to shift the dreamer's perception. In the southeast, Larry and his spirit wolf brought humility and wisdom, reminding the elders of their leadership roles. In the southwest, Roberta and her thunderbird, aligned with the sounds of thunder and lightning, brought energy and alignment. In the northwest, Sam and his mouse, despite Sam not being happy about his selection of spirit animal, assured others of their survival as a species with endurance, adaptability, and focus. As the group set out to find the 7 elders of the 7 starseed tribes living on Earth, at the center, Dorje and I traveled together with a spirit turtle named Venus de Milo, who was sitting on my lap. She represented truth, the truth that binds all things together. We set out in the dream time to journey to the Temple of the Akashic Records to speak to the Archangel Metatron and access past, present, and future knowledge. This would allow a deeper understanding of probable futures and ensure the best possible chance of success. The drums and rattles continued for hours, eventually greeting the setting sun and echoing throughout the night. Then a strange and wonderful phenomenon began to manifest. Local animals began to congregate at the outskirts of the ceremony, as if dream manifestations were becoming real. It started with a lone gray wolf, who howled in the distance, and then appeared on the mountain ridge. Minutes later, a black-tailed deer sauntered around the campfires looking for food. A great horned owl landed on the branch of a nearby juniper tree. And as if Great Spirit didn't want to leave anything to chance, an eagle appeared in the sky, and landed on top of Dorje's tent. It perched there until the last part of the ceremony, then flew away. As dawn crested the red rocks to the east and the drumming ebbed, the initiates began to emerge, one by one, from their dream states. Wide-eyed and barely awoken from their altered reality, they all began to cry again. They had been successful. Each of them now sat around the campfire, and taking the talking stick, spoke of their journeys and what Great Spirit had them see and do. Across the globe on all 7 continents, each of the initiates had been drawn to one of the 7 elders of the 7 Starseed tribes, and their families living on Earth. They were told in the dream time that each of these Starseed elders and their children held knowledge that would prove to be the key to defeating the reptiles. Thanks to years of Dorje's training, they had contacted the elders and members of the Arcturians, Alpha Centaurians, Anunnaki, Andromedans, Lyrians, Syrians, and Pleiadians, and successfully awakened them. With the announcement of the last civilization, Commander Pomorius let out a shout. "Love Fest!" He sat with members of the ET Army Command, many of whom were still sleeping alongside the fire. When he embraced them all, it may have been the first time in history that Major Brower didn't care. Morning dawned, and as if the prior signs still hadn't been enough, a double rainbow suddenly appeared in the sky above the canyon. Great Spirit had heard and answered their prayers. Once everyone had been roused, Michael concluded the ceremony. "It has been an honor and privilege to spend time with all of my sacred relations here today in this place of power. From the bottom of my heart, I thank you all for making the long and difficult journey to get here. The signs have clearly appeared, and they are good." There was a long pause, what many called deep meditative silence. "Each of you has received a consecrated medicine shield, which has been blessed by every member of the spiritual community who partook in our sacred ceremonies. Please keep this as a precious reminder of our time here today. As you return home, please share this gift with your people. Ask them to reflect daily on those qualities that will bring blessing and honor. Love, wisdom, honesty, respect, generosity, courage, and humility. Please also ask your people to reflect on those reptilian values which have led us down the path of darkness: fear, ignorance, pride, cowardice, greed, dishonesty, and disrespect. We must guard against these qualities if we are to preserve and protect our way of life and all the 2-legged and 4-legged who walk the earth." Michael looked at us all and let loose one final loud and joyous cry, yelling resoundingly, "Imaho!" This reflected their magnificent achievement and deep abiding compassion for all living creatures. As the medicine man finished his last exhortation, drums and rattles and piercing joyful shrieks echoed loudly from the canyon walls again, and every campsite celebrated for what seemed an eternity. Then Dorje turned to the recruits with a smile. "You have done well, young apprentices," he exhorted. "You now understand the importance of your spiritual training, and why the inherent difficulties you undertook were necessary for success. Get your bags and tents, and let us stay here for several more days, fasting and resting in meditation before returning home. We must prepare for the next stage of the journey. We will soon be meeting and protecting the Starseed lineages and their elders as we prepare to enter into a monumentous final battle against the reptilian overlords on Earth." The awakening ceremony had concluded. It was time for Earth's first meeting of the Starseed Council of Elders.
You have done well, my young apprentices. Imaho. Namaste. Namaskaram.